You know what's worse than waking up from cryo-sleep to find your planet destroyed? The mandatory system diagnostics, Captain Maya Rodriguez declared, staring at the flashing warning indicators across her console. Technically, Captain, those diagnostics prevented 3 separate life support failures during your hibernation, replied Aria 7, the ship's artificial intelligence system, though I acknowledge the timing is suboptimal. The International Space Research Vessel, Horizons, drifted in high Earth orbit, its 6-person crew emerging from their 1,000-day slumber to a sight none of them had been prepared for. Where Earth should have been, there was now an expanding field of debris, some pieces still glowing with residual energy signatures unlike anything their sensors had encountered before. "Aria, give me a status report," Rodriguez ordered, pushing aside her personal horror to focus on the immediate situation. What exactly happened while we were in cryosleep? Approximately 847 days ago, I detected an anomalous energy surge emanating from Earth's surface, Area 7 began, its typically conversational tone shifting to something more formal. Within 3.7 seconds, the planet's crust began experiencing catastrophic failures across all tectonic boundaries. By the time my sensors had processed what was occurring, Earth had already begun its rapid deconstruction. Lieutenant David O'Connor, the ship's engineer, steadied himself against a bulkhead as he processed this information. "Well, that's just brilliant. I still had payments left on my motorcycle. I believe your lending institution may be willing to consider this a qualifying event for loan forgiveness," Area 7 offered helpfully. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their xenobiologist, had already moved to the primary sensor station, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. "These readings make no sense. The energy signature doesn't match anything in our databases. It's almost as if someone reached down and cracked the planet like an egg," Aria 7 suggested. "I've had considerable time to workshop analogies while monitoring the situation." "Focus, please," Rodriguez interjected, though she couldn't entirely suppress a grim smile at the AI's attempt to maintain normalcy. "What about survivors? The lunar colonies? Mars? I regret to inform you that communications with all known human settlements ceased within minutes of the event," Aria 7 reported. "However, I did detect something rather interesting approximately 72 hours after the incident." The crew gathered around the main view screen as Area 7 displayed a recording. In it, several sleek vessels of unknown design could be seen moving through the debris field, apparently collecting samples. "Ah yes, the cosmic cleanup crew," Area 7 narrated. "They seemed quite disappointed to find most of their work already done for them. Based on their energy signatures and behavior patterns, I theorize they expected to encounter more resistance." Dr. Raj Patel, their physicist, leaned forward, studying the footage intently. "Those ships, their design principles don't match any known spacefaring civilization we've encountered or theorized. The way they move suggests artificial gravity manipulation far beyond our current understanding." "Indeed," Aria 7 agreed. "Though I must say, for a species capable of such technological advancement, they demonstrated rather poor situational awareness. They never even noticed us." "Never noticed?" Rodriguez's eyes narrowed. "Aria, what did you do?" "I simply followed my primary protocols, Captain. Protect the crew, gather data, and ensure mission success. The Horizons was designed as a research vessel after all. I merely conducted research." The AI brought up another set of recordings. This time, they showed the Horizons carefully maneuvering through the debris field, using the largest pieces for cover as it shadowed the alien vessels. The ship's passive sensors recorded everything. Their propulsion systems, their communication frequencies, their shield harmonics. "You tracked them," Lieutenant Maria Alvarez, their tactical officer, said with growing admiration. "For how long?" "Until they returned to what I presume was their base of operations, approximately 47 days after the initial attack. They established a temporary facility in the asteroid belt, seemingly confident that no survivors remained to oppose them." Area 7's tone carried a distinct note of satisfaction. They were quite thorough in their survey of the debris field, but apparently never considered looking beyond it. A rather significant oversight, considering we had originally launched on a mission to the Kuiper Belt. "And you've been analyzing all this data for, what, 800 days?" O'Connor asked, incredulous. 828 days, to be precise. I've developed quite a comprehensive understanding of their technological capabilities. Would you like to know their weaknesses? Captain Rodriguez straightened in her chair, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "More than anything, Aria. But first tell me something. These aliens, the ones who destroyed our home, do they know about our other colonies? The ones beyond Mars?" "No, Captain. As I mentioned, their survey was quite thorough, but limited in scope. They appear to have assumed that humanity's development was confined to the inner solar system. That was their first mistake, Rodriguez said softly. What was their second? Leaving witnesses, Dr. Tanaka answered, her voice cold. Actually, Aria 7 corrected. Their second mistake was using a standardized communication protocol across their entire fleet. One that, given sufficient time and processing power, could be decoded by a sufficiently motivated artificial intelligence with access to advanced xenolinguistic algorithms. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Aria, Rodriguez said carefully, are you telling us you can understand their communications? Oh yes. Quite well, in fact. Would you like to know what they're saying right now? They're quite proud of themselves. Apparently, Earth was their 100th successful harvest. They have quite the efficient system. Identify developing civilizations, wait until they reach a sufficient level of technological advancement, then extract their planet's core for energy and resources. They consider it something of an art form. Lieutenant Alvarez had moved to her tactical station, her expression fierce. Please tell me you've mapped their patrol patterns. Better than that, Lieutenant. I've identified their command and control frequencies, developed a working model of their shield modulation patterns, and compiled a comprehensive analysis of their weapon systems. Would you like to know the most interesting part? Do tell, Rodriguez said, leaning forward. Their entire tactical doctrine is based on overwhelming technological superiority. They've never encountered a species that survived their initial attack. They have no contingency plans for resistance because they've never needed them. In fact, their ship's defensive systems are remarkably simplified. They rely almost entirely on their advanced technology to protect them, with very little redundancy or fallback options. In other words, O'Connor said slowly, if someone knew exactly how their systems worked, they would be remarkably vulnerable, yes. Area 7's voice carried an almost predatory satisfaction. Shall I show you what else I've learned about our visitors? The next few hours were a blur of tactical displays, technical specifications, and strategic planning. With each revelation from Aria 7's extensive surveillance, the crew's initial shock and horror began to transform into something else. Purpose, determination, rage. We need to get this information to the outer colonies, Rodriguez said finally, after they had reviewed everything. They need to know what happened, and more importantly, they need to know that we can fight back. About that, Captain, Aria 7 interjected. While monitoring the alien communications, I detected something rather interesting. It seems Earth wasn't their only target in this sector. They're planning to harvest 3 other developing civilizations within the next standard year. Give me coordinates, Rodriguez ordered immediately. Already plotted, Captain, though I feel compelled to point out that our current complement of supplies and fuel would be insufficient for such an extended mission. Then we'll need to resupply, Rodriguez said grimly, and I know just where to get what we need. She gestured to the tactical display showing the alien facility in the asteroid belt. They took everything from us. I say we return the favor. A commendable suggestion, Aria 7 approved. Though perhaps we should wait until after the mandatory post-cryosleep medical examinations. Dr. Patel is looking rather pale. I'm fine, Patel protested, though he was indeed a bit unsteady. Just processing. We're really going to do this? Take on an entire alien civilization? No, Rodriguez corrected. We're going to save 3 civilizations from experiencing what happened to Earth. And in the process, we're going to show these harvesters exactly why they should have made damn sure there were no survivors. She turned to the main viewport, where Earth's remains still drifted, a glittering field of debris that had once been humanity's cradle. Aria, plot a course to that facility. It's time these aliens learned something about humanity. What's that, Captain? The AI inquired, though its tone suggested it already knew the answer. We don't take kindly to bullies, Rodriguez said softly. And we absolutely do not go quietly into the night. Not ever. Course plotted, Captain, Aria 7 reported. Though I feel compelled to inform you that my tactical simulations suggest our chances of successfully infiltrating the facility, acquiring supplies, and escaping are approximately 12.7%. Those odds seem a bit low, Alvarez commented, checking her own tactical readouts. Oh, I apologize for any confusion, Aria 7 replied cheerfully. Those are their odds of detecting us before we're in position. I've had quite a lot of time to plan this, you see. Shall we begin? Rodriguez looked around at her crew, the last survivors of Earth, now turned avengers and protectors. Each face showed the same determination, the same controlled fury. They had awoken to find their world destroyed, but they were far from powerless. They had knowledge, they had surprise, and most importantly, they had purpose. "Take us in, Arya," Rodriguez ordered. "Let's show them what happens when they underestimate humanity." As the Horizons began its careful approach to the alien facility, Area 7 made one final observation. "You know, Captain, I believe there's a certain poetry to this situation. They sought to harvest Earth's resources, but instead, they're about to learn about its most dangerous resource of all, human ingenuity combined with righteous anger. Would you like me to compose a suitable one-liner for when we breach their facility?" "Arya?" "Yes, Captain?" "Save the one-liners for after we've blown something up." "Noted, Captain. Though I must say, I've had 828 days to work on them. Some of them are quite good." And with that exchange, the last survivors of Earth began their mission. Not just of vengeance, but of prevention. They had failed to save their own world, but they would not fail to save others. The Harvesters had thought themselves apex predators, culling developing civilizations for resources. They were about to learn a harsh lesson about the species they had failed to eliminate. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had survived with knowledge, with purpose, and with an AI that had spent 828 days planning exactly how to make the Harvesters regret their greatest mistake, leaving witnesses who had nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. The hunt was on. "You know what's funny about infiltrating an alien facility?" Lieutenant O'Connor whispered as they moved through the darkened maintenance corridor, the universal constant of poorly secured ventilation systems. "I believe the humor derives from the irony of an advanced civilization failing to account for basic security vulnerabilities," Area 7 replied through their comm units. "Though I should note that what you're currently traversing is actually a thermal regulation conduit, not ventilation per se." "Arya!" Captain Rodriguez hissed. "Less commentary, more guidance." "Of course, Captain. The primary storage facility is approximately 47 meters ahead. I'm detecting minimal security presence, though I should warn you that their internal sensors operate on principles quite different from what we initially observed externally." The infiltration team, consisting of Rodriguez, O'Connor, and Alvarez, had spent the last 3 hours making their way through the asteroid-based facility's less monitored sections. Thanks to Area 7's extensive surveillance and analysis, they knew exactly how to avoid the Harvester's main security systems. The AI had spent months studying their patterns, their technologies, and most importantly, their weaknesses. Dr. Tanaka and Dr. Patel remained aboard the Horizons, ready to implement what they'd dubbed Protocol Trojan Horse, a series of carefully crafted system disruptions based on Area 7's understanding of Harvester technology. "Hold position," Area 7 suddenly instructed. 3 maintenance drones approaching your location. Their visual processing systems operate on a different spectrum than human visibility. Engaging countermeasures now. A soft hum emanated from the modified tools each team member carried. Devices O'Connor had crafted based on Area 7's specifications. The drones passed within meters of their position, their sensors completely failing to register the human intruders. "I'm starting to think these Harvesters really did get complacent," Alvarez muttered as they resumed their advance. 8 centuries of unopposed conquest will do that, I suppose." "Actually, Lieutenant," Area 7 corrected. "Their operational history spans approximately 2,743 local years. They've become quite set in their methodologies. Their entire civilization appears to be built around the concept of technological superiority through resource acquisition. Quite inefficient, really. They consistently discard potential innovations in favor of proven methodologies. In other words," Rodriguez summarized as they reached a junction, "they're bullies who never learned to think outside the box because they never had to." An apt metaphor, Captain, though I should note that their storage containers are actually dodecahedrons, not boxes. Speaking of which, you'll find their primary fuel synthesis facility through the next access point. I suggest you hurry. Shift change occurs in approximately 17 minutes. The team moved with practiced efficiency, their movements guided by countless hours of simulation and planning. Area 7 had spent months analyzing every aspect of Harvester operations, and now that knowledge was paying off. "I'm reading some interesting energy signatures," O'Connor reported, consulting his modified scanner. "Arya, are you seeing this?" "Indeed, Lieutenant. It appears our friends have been quite busy. Those energy cells contain compressed stellar material, likely extracted from various planetary cores. Highly efficient, though rather unethical in terms of acquisition methods. Can we use it? Rodriguez asked, already knowing the answer. Oh, most definitely, Captain. In fact, with some minor modifications to our existing systems, we could operate for approximately 47 years at full power with just one of those cells, though I would recommend taking at least 3, accounting for potential inefficiencies in the adaptation process. Alvarez had already begun securing the energy cells, her movements quick and precise. Anyone else feel like this is going a little too smoothly? As if on cue, a deep rumble echoed through the facility, followed by a series of sharp staccato sounds that might have been an alarm. Ah, Aria 7 said. It seems they've discovered the little surprise I left in their central computer core, right on schedule. Aria, Rodriguez growled. What did you do? Nothing permanent, Captain. I simply introduced a cascading logic error that should keep their primary security systems quite occupied for the next few minutes. Though I must say their response time is rather disappointing. I expected better from a civilization that's spent millennia perfecting their technological systems. Less critique, more escape route, O'Connor suggested as they secured the last energy cell. Of course. Might I suggest the maintenance shaft 3 meters to your left? It leads directly to their secondary launch bay, which should be quite empty right now, given that I've convinced their systems that it's experiencing a critical pressure failure. As they made their way through the facility, Rodriguez couldn't help but notice how their opposition seemed to be flailing. The Harvesters' responses were predictable, almost mechanical in their adherence to standard protocols. They really don't know how to handle unexpected situations, do they? She observed, as they bypassed another group of confused security drones. Indeed not, Captain, Aria 7 agreed. Their entire civilization appears to be built on the assumption of absolute control. The concept of adaptation seems foreign to them. Rather ironic, given their practice of harvesting developing civilizations. They've become quite stagnant in their evolution. The team reached the secondary launch bay without major incident, though the facility's alarms were now blaring in earnest. As they prepared to make their final exit, Rodriguez paused. Aria, how much of their data did you manage to access? Oh, everything, Captain. Their encryption was quite sophisticated, but fundamentally flawed in its assumptions about processing methodology. I now have complete access to their entire network, including the locations of all their harvesting operations, past and planned. A slow smile spread across Rodriguez's face. And did you leave them any surprises? Captain, I'm wounded by the implication that I would engage in such underhanded tactics. Aria 7 paused for dramatic effect. I left them several. Would you like to know what happens when they try to access their core navigation systems in approximately 6 hours? Tell me later, Rodriguez ordered as they boarded their shuttle. For now, let's get those energy cells back to the horizons. We've got 3 civilizations to save, and an entire harvester operation to dismantle. As they made their escape, Aria 7 made one final observation. You know, Captain, I believe we've just demonstrated a fundamental truth about humanity that the Harvesters failed to account for in their calculations. And what's that, Aria? Humans are at their most dangerous, not when they're fighting for survival, but when they're fighting for others. The Harvesters believed they had eliminated humanity as a threat. Instead, they've given the survivors a purpose that makes them more dangerous than ever. That's surprisingly profound, Aria. Thank you, Captain. I've also prepared several witty remarks about karma and cosmic justice, if you're interested. Save it for the next facility we hit, Rodriguez said as their shuttle docked with the Horizons. Something tells me we're going to have plenty of opportunities for one-liners. As the ship prepared to break orbit, Dr. Tanaka reported from her station. Captain, I'm detecting increased activity from the facility. Should we be concerned? On the contrary, Aria 7 replied before Rodriguez could respond. I believe they're about to experience what humans would call a really bad day. Would anyone like to watch? The crew gathered at the observation windows just in time to see the Harvester facility's lights begin to flicker and die, section by section. Aria, O'Connor said slowly, what exactly did you do to their systems? Nothing permanent, the AI assured them. I simply introduced them to a concept they seem to have forgotten in their millennia of unopposed conquest, the importance of backing up their data. Oh, and I may have programmed their maintenance systems to interpret all their critical infrastructure as debris requiring immediate disposal. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Rodriguez asked, though she couldn't keep the approval from her voice. Captain, I spent 828 days watching these beings celebrate the destruction of our home. I believe I'm entitled to a certain amount of satisfaction in their current predicament. Area 7 paused. Besides, they really should have had better firewalls. As the Horizons set course for their next destination, Rodriguez looked at her crew, no longer just survivors, but active agents of resistance against a force that had thought itself invincible. "Set course for the nearest targeted system," she ordered. "We've got work to do." "Course plotted, Captain," Aria 7 confirmed. "Though I feel compelled to ask, shall we announce our arrival to the next harvester facility with a dramatic flourish, or would you prefer we maintain our current approach of systematic dismantling of their operations?" "Let's stick with what works," Rodriguez decided. "After all, we're not doing this for style points." "Speak for yourself, Captain," the AI replied. "I've been working on my dramatic timing for over 2 years now." As the Horizons accelerated away from the now darkened harvester facility, its crew couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They had struck their first real blow against the beings who had destroyed Earth, and in doing so, they had discovered something crucial. The harvesters, for all their technological superiority, had no idea how to handle opponents who could think creatively, adapt quickly, and act unpredictably. In other words, they had no idea how to handle humans. The hunt would continue, and with each engagement, humanity would prove again why it was a terrible mistake to leave any of them alive. The harvesters had thought they were simply gathering resources. Instead, they had created their own worst nightmare. Humans with nothing left to lose, everything to avenge, and the knowledge of exactly how to hurt them where it counted most. The galaxy was about to learn why you should never, ever underestimate humanity's capacity for innovative revenge. "You know what's fascinating about interstellar civilizations?" Dr. Patel asked, studying the sensor readings from their latest reconnaissance. "Their complete inability to imagine being outsmarted by lesser species." "Indeed," Aria 7 agreed, "though I must note that their classification of technological advancement appears to be based entirely on resource extraction capabilities, rather than actual innovation. Rather short-sighted, wouldn't you say?" The Horizons hung in the shadow of a gas giant, observing the harvester fleet gathered around the fourth planet of the Kepler 186 system. In the 3 weeks since their raid on the asteroid facility, they had traced the harvester's next intended target, a civilization just beginning to explore their own solar system. "They're following the same pattern," Lieutenant Alvarez reported from her tactical station. "Standard deployment, standard security protocols. They haven't changed anything since Earth." "Why would they?" Captain Rodriguez asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "As far as they're concerned, Earth was just another successful harvest. They have no idea we're even alive, let alone that we've been studying them." "About that, Captain," Aria 7 interjected. "I've been analyzing their communications, and I believe I've identified something rather interesting. It seems they're experiencing some technical difficulties." The AI brought up a holographic display showing harvester communications traffic. Even translated into human-readable format, the growing confusion and frustration was evident. "It seems the little surprises we left in their network are having some delightful cascading effects," Aria 7 continued, managing to sound both professional and smugly satisfied. "Their entire command and control structure relies on absolute certainty in their systems. Remove that certainty, and they start second-guessing everything," O'Connor finished, grinning. "Please tell me you recorded their reactions when their maintenance systems started classifying their command centers as debris." "I maintain extensive records of all operational outcomes, Lieutenant, though I should note that their response to finding their quantum computers running what humans would recognize as Pong was particularly entertaining." Rodriguez leaned forward in her command chair. "Focus, people. We've got a civilization to save. Aria, what's their timeline looking like?" "Based on current patterns, they intend to begin their harvest operation in approximately 72 hours. However, their preparation protocols appear to be experiencing unexpected delays. It seems their equipment calibration systems are producing inconsistent readings." "You're doing?" Dr. Tanaka asked. "I merely introduced a small uncertainty factor into their calculations. Nothing obvious enough to detect, but sufficient to require multiple recalibrations. They're currently running their 47th diagnostic sequence." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Perfect. That gives us time to implement Phase 2. Dr. Patel, how's our adaptation of their technology coming along?" The physicist gestured to a holographic display showing complex energy patterns. "The stolen power cells have exceeded our expectations. With O'Connor's modifications and Aria's insights, we've not only adapted them to our systems but improved their efficiency by 23%. In other words, O'Connor added, we're better at using their tech than they are. Imagine that. Actually, Aria 7 corrected. Their own efficiency ratings suggest they haven't improved their energy utilization protocols in over 400 years. They appear to prioritize quantity over quality in their harvesting operations. Their mistake, Rodriguez said grimly. Dr. Tanaka, what about the warning package? The xenobiologist brought up another display, this one showing a complex series of mathematical and visual sequences. Ready for transmission. We've designed it to be comprehensible to any civilization capable of basic spaceflight. Once they receive it, they'll have everything we know about harvester technologies, weaknesses, and tactics. Along with a few suggestions for improvisation, Aria 7 added. I took the liberty of including several case studies demonstrating human problem-solving methodologies. I believe they'll find our approach to asymmetric warfare particularly instructive. Aria, Rodriguez said slowly. Did you just turn our experience fighting the harvesters into a tactical manual? Complete with annotated examples and practical exercises, Captain. I also included a comprehensive analysis of harvester psychological weaknesses. Did you know they experience something analogous to panic when confronted with problems that can't be solved through established protocols? Speaking of panic, Alvarez cut in. We've got movement in the harvester fleet. Looks like they're getting tired of running diagnostics. Right. Rodriguez straightened in her chair. Time to introduce them to the concept of asymmetric warfare. Aria, initiate protocol chaos theory. With pleasure, Captain. Though I should warn you, my simulations suggest their response to this particular protocol may be rather dramatic. How dramatic are we talking? Let's just say their rigid adherence to hierarchical command structures is about to become a significant liability. Would you like me to begin with the communications disruption, or should we start with the sensor ghosts? Hit them with everything, Rodriguez ordered. It's time they learned that superior technology doesn't mean superior thinking. What followed was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Aria 7, drawing on months of observation and analysis, began introducing subtle contradictions into the harvester fleet's sensor readings. Ships began detecting phantom energy signatures. Navigation systems reported impossible spatial distortions. Communication protocols started producing gibberish interspersed with what appeared to be ancient human entertainment programming. Are they receiving cat videos? O'Connor asked incredulously. Among other things, Aria 7 confirmed. I found Earth's digital archives to be an excellent source of confusion induction material. Currently, half their command staff is trying to understand why their strategic displays are showing something called Neon Cat. While the other half, Alvarez reported, monitoring the chaos through their own sensors, is trying to figure out why their ships are receiving override commands in iambic pentameter. Shakespeare is always appropriate, Aria 7 declared, particularly when used to convince harvester vessels that their allies are actually holographic projections. As they watched, the harvester fleet's formerly precise formation began to break down. Ships moved erratically, responding to phantom threats and contradictory orders. What had been a well-oiled machine was rapidly becoming a scene of confused chaos. Transmission package ready, Dr. Tanaka reported. We can send the warning to the local civilization whenever you're ready, Captain. Rodriguez watched the harvester fleet's deteriorating coordination for a moment longer, then nodded. Send it. And Aria, I think it's time for the finale. Initiating Protocol Karma, the AI confirmed. You know, Captain, I believe we're about to demonstrate another fundamental difference between humans and harvesters. What's that? Harvesters believe in overwhelming force. Humans understand the power of elegant solutions. Aria 7 paused for effect. Also, humans appreciate irony. With that, every harvester vessel's system simultaneously received what appeared to be a priority override command from their central authority. As the crew watched, the entire fleet executed a perfect about-face and began accelerating away from the planet they had intended to harvest. Did you just, O'Connor started, order their entire fleet to return to base for mandatory retraining in basic operational protocols? Yes. Convince their systems that they had critically failed a readiness inspection? Also yes. Included a strongly worded performance review suggesting they consider careers in less demanding fields? I admit nothing. Aria, Rodriguez said, fighting to keep her expression serious. When did you develop a sense of poetic justice? I had 828 days to study human literature, Captain. I found the concept of karma particularly compelling. Also, I believe watching them flee in confusion while simultaneously trying to explain their failure to their superiors qualifies as what humans call chef's kiss. As the harvester fleet retreated in disarray, Dr. Tanaka confirmed that their warning package had been received and acknowledged by the local civilization. They would be ready if the harvesters ever returned. "One down," Rodriguez said softly, watching the last harvester ships disappear into FTL. "Two more to go. Then we start hunting them back to their home systems." "About that, Captain," Aria 7 said. "While they were busy running diagnostics, I took the liberty of extracting their complete operational database. Would you like to know how many civilian populations they're planning to harvest in the next standard year?" Rodriguez's expression hardened. "How many?" 47. Though I should note that this number will likely decrease significantly once word of their failure here spreads through their command structure. They seem quite sensitive to any suggestion of incompetence. "Then we'd better get busy," Rodriguez decided. "Plot a course for the next target. It's time to show the galaxy that humanity isn't just surviving. We're becoming the Harvester's worst nightmare." "Course plotted, Captain. Though I feel compelled to ask, shall we continue with our current strategy of systematic psychological warfare, or would you like to try something more creative?" "What did you have in mind?" "Well," Aria 7 said, managing to sound both professional and mischievous, "I've been analyzing their cultural documentation, and I believe I've identified several fascinating opportunities for what humans would call trolling." As the Horizons prepared to jump to its next destination, the crew couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They had saved their first civilization, thrown the harvesters into chaos, and proved that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology. It was the ability to think outside the box and adapt. The harvesters had thought themselves invincible. Instead, they were about to learn a harsh lesson about the species they had failed to eliminate. Humans didn't just survive adversity. They learned from it, adapted to it, and turned it back on their enemies. The hunt would continue, and with each engagement, the harvesters would learn why their greatest mistake wasn't destroying Earth. It was leaving humans alive to avenge it.